The wind came low across the scrub plains, whispering through brittle sage and kicking grit across the porch of a ranch that had long forgotten laughter. A single rocking chair creaked, empty. Inside, Thomas Greaves sat at a scarred kitchen table, poring over a letter stained by time, sweat, and hesitation. The ink, though faded, bore a hand both bold and unsure. "I will come," it read. "Not for love, but for purpose." He folded it carefully, as if the words might crumble to dust if he moved too quickly. Outside, the mule brayed. Old Clementine, half blind, half lame, but too stubborn to die, stood like a sentinel in the yard of cracked earth and broken fence posts. 5 years ago, Thomas buried his wife under the cottonwood tree near the well, and with her, he buried the man he used to be. Life had drained from his land as surely as it had from her eyes. What he had now was emptiness and a gnawing reminder that men alone don't last long on the frontier, not without fight or faith. He had run out of both. When the idea of sending for a young settler came to him, it wasn't with romance. It was desperation. The ranch was dying. The soil needed hands, the stock needed care, and his joints betrayed him more each season. He wrote to an agency back east and offered what little he had: 3 rusted rifles, a bag of coin, and the promise of dry land. Months passed. Then came the letter from a woman named Anna Reed, 22, orphaned in Kansas, strong and willing. She would arrive by stage in Larkspur Pass in 6 days. He cleaned the place as best he could, hauled brush, patched the roof with strips of canvas, even mended the fence gate, where the hinge had hung limp since the last storm. No one in town asked why the sudden effort. They just watched. Greaves had always been a quiet man. They figured he was patching things up before riding off somewhere to die in peace. On the 4th morning, he rode into Larkspur to buy flour, beans, and a spool of thread. He hadn't had use for thread in years, but something about the notion of another person under his roof stirred him to decency. At the general store, a wiry man behind the counter gave him a sideways glance. "Big plans, Greaves." He nodded once. "Might be someone coming. Need to be ready." The man raised an eyebrow but said nothing more. By now, Thomas knew what silence cost: less than suspicion, more than curiosity. That night, thunder growled over the horizon. The storm missed his land, like they often did, but the air carried the memory of rain. He sat under the eaves with a rifle laid across his knees, not expecting trouble, but not convinced peace would hold. The world had a way of punishing hope. The next morning, the stagecoach didn't come. By noon, word reached Larkspur that bandits had hit the trail near the southern rim of the canyon. Driver shot, horses stolen, cargo ransacked. There were rumors of passengers taken. A man from the trading post near the pass staggered into the sheriff's office with a story of gunshots and masked men with red cloths around their necks. Thomas heard it from a boy running through town, crying out like it was fire news. He left his supplies in the dust and walked straight to the sheriff's office. "She was on that coach," he said, voice even low. The sheriff, a squat man named Dobbs, removed his hat and scratched his scalp. "You sure, Tom? I sent for her myself." Dobbs shifted uneasily. "A girl? You sent for one." Thomas stared. The silence was answer enough. Dobbs cleared his throat. "Ain't much we can do now. They'll be long gone. Probably Pike Car's crew. Nasty lot. Fast-moving. Slip through those canyons like lizards." Thomas's jaw set like stone. "Where's the last place they were seen? You don't want to go out there alone, Tom." "I ain't got much choice." Dobbs stepped forward, hand open. "You're old, and that leg never healed right. Let it go." Thomas looked at him then, not with fury, not even sadness, but the cold resignation of a man who's already spoken with ghosts. "She ain't even set foot on my land, and already they've taken her. That makes her mine to answer for." He turned and left. By dusk, he had packed a saddlebag with a flask of water, a compass, dried meat, and the old army knife he hadn't touched in 15 years. He dug under the floorboards and pulled out a wrapped oilcloth bundle. The rifle inside was warm but clean. He loaded it slow, deliberate, checking every chamber like it might speak. Clementine brayed as he fitted the saddle. She wasn't fast, but she was steady. He muttered to her as he worked, more to hear his own voice than for her comfort. "Seems we got one more ride in us, girl." They rode through the night. The moon cut silver lines across the rock, and every shadow felt like a memory rising to meet him. He hadn't tracked men in over a decade, but the old habit stirred in his blood. He watched the land, broken branches, scattered boot prints, the black scorch of burned wagon wood. In a dry wash near the foothills, he found a strip of fabric snagged on mesquite, bright, floral, out of place. He ran it through his fingers. It smelled of dust and gunpowder. "She fought," he said aloud, almost reverently. By dawn, he reached the edge of the southern canyon. The rock walls were high and cruel, cutting the wind into 1,000 echoes. Somewhere out there, Pike Carr and his men held a girl who belonged to nobody, yet mattered more than anything Thomas had left. He dismounted and let Clementine drink. He crouched, hand on the dirt, eyes tracing patterns the wind hadn't yet erased. Multiple riders, wagons dragged off trail. Someone had limped. He knew these signs like old verses. This was no ambush and vanish. They were headed somewhere. A hideout, maybe a cave networked deeper into the ravines. He straightened slowly, bones groaning like an old tree in wind. What business did an old widower have chasing killers across the desert for a girl he'd never met? The kind of business only a man with nothing left could understand. In the still heat of morning, Thomas Greaves set his boot forward. Each step was a vow not to return without her, or not to return at all. The sun climbed slow and merciless over the canyon rim, burning the last of the morning chill off the rocks. Thomas moved like a shadow pressed against the wind, his boots sure over loose stone, his eyes scanning every ridge and dry bend. There were tracks now, clearer than before. 5, maybe 6 riders, 1 wagon wheel. Fresh dung, faint scuff of a boot dragged through gravel. Someone wounded. The path threaded deep into a ravine laced with juniper and iron rock. Clementine wheezed behind him, but didn't balk. She'd ridden through worse. He dismounted, took her reins in hand, and walked her along the trail's edge. A broken axle lay half buried ahead, and beside it, a smear of dried blood. No body, no name. He paused. Blood didn't frighten him. It only reminded him of time. The kind of time that leaks away when bullets fly and bones snap under hooves. The kind of time he used to understand before the land got quiet and the world forgot who he'd been. The war had made monsters out of boys and ghosts out of fathers. Thomas had been both. At 17, he rode with a cavalry unit through the plains, tracking raiders and deserters. They called him Tombstone Tom, not because he liked killing, because he didn't blink when it came. Quiet, fast, unshaking. A scout's eyes, a sniper's hands. And when the war ended, when the glory rotted into guilt, he buried his uniform and found a girl with soft fingers and a stubborn streak who taught him how to grow things instead of break them. He hadn't touched a rifle since the day he held his wife's cold hand and whispered promises he could never keep. But the past didn't vanish in silence. It waited in the dust, under floorboards, in the weight of a gun reloaded by hands that hadn't forgotten a thing. He climbed the canyon wall where the trail split, scanning the basin below. A vulture circled far off. No smoke, no sound, but something pulled at him, an instinct, the kind that had once saved him and ruined him in the same breath. He tied Clementine in the shade of a cedar snag and continued on foot, rifle slung low, footsteps light. The wind shifted, bringing the scent of char and sweat. Voices. He dropped to a crouch and crawled toward a ledge, careful not to kick loose a pebble. Below, nestled in the crook of 2 rock faces, lay a camp. Makeshift tents, a half-burned fire, and 6 men moving with lazy confidence. They thought they were safe. One played a harmonica badly. Another cleaned a revolver with the care of a mother tending a child. 2 of them were arguing over cards. Then he saw her, Anna, tied at the wrists to a bent post, her face bruised, hair matted, dress torn at the hem. But her eyes were sharp, alert, not broken. She was watching, counting movements, measuring risks. Good, he thought. The girl has teeth. A man walked past her with a tin cup. She spat at him. He raised a hand to strike, but stopped when one of the others barked something. The man cursed and threw the cup aside. Thomas backed away slowly from the ledge. His mind worked fast. No panic, no second-guessing. He'd been outnumbered before. Numbers didn't matter when you struck from shadow. He found a ridge above the camp, surveyed the drop, the sight lines, the escape routes. They were careless. They had no sentry. That meant they didn't expect anyone to come. Or worse, they believed no one cared enough to try. That made them vulnerable. He scouted a path along the higher ledges, marking handholds and shallow gullies. He'd come back under dark. With luck, they'd be drinking themselves stupid by then. Back at the cedar, Clementine looked at him sideways. He stroked her nose. She's alive. Means I ain't too late. He fed her a few strips of dried apple and drank deep from his flask. His hands were steady now, strange. How battle steadied a man more than peace ever could. He hated that it was still true. By twilight, he had gathered what he needed. 2 dry branches, strips of cloth, the oil from his flask, a pouch of gunpowder he'd carried since his cavalry days. He made 2 torches and buried them near the ledge. Night dropped fast in the canyon. The moon rose like a bone lantern behind clouds, and Thomas waited in the dark, watching. The men below laughed louder now. One fired a pistol into the air for no reason. Another urinated off the far side of the camp. No one checked the girl. Thomas slipped down the ravine's flank, boot to rock, slow as dripping water. He moved from boulder to boulder, heart steady, eyes always on the periphery. The desert spoke if you listened close, rockfall, breath. The creak of boots not your own. He reached a cluster of brush near the edge of camp. From there, he could see her again. Anna was shifting her wrists against the rope. Not panicked, methodical. She was working at the knot. He smiled faintly. She didn't wait to be rescued. That made her worth bleeding for. He inched back up to the torches, doused one end in oil, and sparked it with flint. The flame bloomed like a devil's whisper. He lifted the torch high, then cast it into the dry grass along the windward side of the camp. It caught instantly. The second torch followed. Within moments, flame roared across the brush. The outlaws scrambled, shouting, grabbing rifles, stumbling over tents. Thomas slid into position above them, rifle cradled. He fired once, center mass, clean. A second shot, through the shoulder of a man reaching for the girl. Screams erupted. Horses panicked, broke loose, scattered into the ravine. Anna kicked the man nearest her, sending him sprawling into the fire's edge. Thomas watched her dive for a fallen knife. "Run," he whispered into the dark, though she couldn't hear him. But she was already moving. As chaos consumed the camp below, Thomas pulled back into the rocks. He didn't need to kill them all. Just enough to scatter them. Just enough to get her out. He would finish it soon. But tonight she was free. And the men who took her would learn that the past didn't die easy in the desert. Sometimes it crawled out of the dust with a rifle and a name you'd long stopped fearing, until it came calling. He retreated with the fire behind him, the canyon glowing like an open wound. His shadow stretched long across the stone, and with every step, the legend of who he once was stirred in the dark. Anna ran. Her bare feet hit sharp gravel, dry weeds, and the bones of the land itself, but she did not slow. Behind her, flames roared and voices shattered into curses and chaos. Somewhere above, a rifle cracked again. She didn't look back. Whoever had fired had given her this moment, and she meant to use it. She slipped into a gulch where the canyon walls narrowed. Shadows swallowed her, and her breath came in ragged gasps. Her wrists bled from the rope, but she still gripped the knife she'd stolen in the confusion. In her chest, fear pounded, but underneath it, something harder. Rage. Resolve. She crouched against a boulder, listening. One set of boots followed. Fast. Angry. Anna pressed herself into the rock's curve and waited. When the man came around the corner, gun half raised, cursing her name, she didn't hesitate. She lunged, blade flashing low. The edge cut his thigh deep. He screamed and dropped his revolver. She kicked it away and ran. Back in the camp, Pike Carr watched the blaze eat through his provisions, his whiskey, his men's comfort. He spat into the dirt, fury drawing lines across his brow. 2 men dead. 1 wounded bad. Another gone, maybe fled. This wasn't supposed to happen. Someone out there knew we'd hit the coach, he muttered. A lean man with a scar across his scalp stepped forward. Ain't no lawman. Too smart. Picked us off from above, set the fire to split us. Pike narrowed his eyes. Reckon he came for the girl. You want me to track her? The scarred man asked. Pike nodded once. And bring the old bastard's head while you're at it. Thomas moved through the canyon like a man returning home. Every turn, every ridge whispered of past hunts, past battles. But his bones hurt now, and his lungs didn't draw as deep as they used to. The pain wasn't weakness, it was memory. A toll paid to keep moving. He'd seen her escape, watched her vanish into the gulch. Smart. He prayed she wouldn't go far. Alone, she could last a day, maybe two. The wild didn't care if you were young or strong. It just waited. He reached a rock shelf overlooking the burned-out camp. What was left of it smoldered like a broken promise. One body still lay where it had fallen. The others were gone, melted into the night. But they'd regroup. And when they did, they'd come looking. He descended into the ashes, careful, slow. He found tracks, Anna's, light and fast, and heavier ones, too. Boot prints not hers. One set followed hers into the gulch. The rest split off. They were hunting now. So was he. He followed the trail with grim precision. The land made no effort to help him, but it couldn't hide the truth either. He saw the scuffle marks where she'd fought, the blood smear, the dropped revolver. She'd lived. He picked up the revolver, checked the chamber. 2 bullets left. Slipped it into his belt. He moved faster now. Anna was nearly delirious when he found her, huddled beneath a jut of rock, knife still in hand, eyes wild but clear. When he stepped into view, she raised the blade. Easy, he said low, calm. I'm the one who lit the fire. She stared at him. You came for me? He nodded. Name's Thomas Greaves. I sent for you. You're old, she said, blinking. He almost smiled. So I've been told. She lowered the knife. He passed her a water flask. You hurt. She drank deep, then shook her head. Nothing bad. Just tired. We can't rest long, he said. They'll come. I know. He looked at her then. Not just a girl rescued, but someone tempered by fire. You held your own. She met his gaze. I don't break easy. Good. You're gonna need that. They moved together through the narrow pass. Thomas led, watching every rise and turn. Anna followed, silent now, her fear sharpened into vigilance. Behind them, the canyon echoed with movement. The scarred man, Jeb, his name had been once, closed the distance like a snake through brush. He'd tracked fugitives before. His eyes were pale and empty. He didn't care about the girl. He wanted the man, the one who'd ruined their fire, taken their pride. He wanted the kill. Dawn crept in gray and slow. Thomas and Anna reached a rise where the cliff widened and the land opened into scrub hills. In the distance, the edge of Thomas's land shimmered beneath a rising heat. We're close, he said. Anna looked at the horizon. Feels like a dream. He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed behind him. There's a rider, he said. Anna turned. Far down the trail, a dust plume rose. Just one. Coming fast. Thomas took a knee behind a boulder and readied his rifle. You stay low. No matter what. Anna dropped beside him, fingers tightening around the knife. The rider came into view, Jeb. Shotgun raised. He didn't slow. Thomas fired. The shot hit the horse's leg. It shrieked and toppled. Jeb flew forward, hit the ground rolling, and came up firing. Pellets screamed past Thomas's shoulder. He ducked and fired again. Missed. Jeb sprinted left, using rock cover. Fast. Too fast. Another shot. Dust exploded near Thomas's head. Then silence. Jeb was circling, using the slope. Thomas turned to Anna. Go. Now. She hesitated. Run, damn it. She bolted uphill. Jeb appeared at the edge of a boulder, shotgun raised. Thomas dropped to one knee, steadied his breath, and fired. The bullet punched through Jeb's chest. He staggered, fell, tried to rise, then didn't. Thomas stayed crouched a moment longer, waiting, breathing. Then he stood. Anna waited at the top of the hill, chest heaving. When he reached her, she didn't speak, just stared at him. You kill him, she asked. He nodded. They walked the last half-mile in silence. The land around them cracked and shimmered with heat. His ranch waited beyond a dying fence line. The house, small and crooked, stood like a memory. Anna stopped. "You really meant to marry me?" He looked at her, sun in his eyes. "I meant to give you a place. A start." "I don't need saving," she said. "I know," he answered. "But maybe I do." She didn't reply. They crossed the final stretch together, two strangers no longer running, but still haunted by what chased them. They had reached the land, but the reckoning wasn't over yet. The sun bore down on the land like an unblinking eye, hot and watchful. Anna stood on the porch of the crooked house, hands braced against the railing, staring into the haze. Below her, Thomas hammered the last plank onto the fence, sweat darkening the back of his shirt. It had been 3 days since the canyon and the killing, 3 days since they crossed onto his land bloodied, spent, and no longer strangers. At first, silence filled the space between them. Then work. Mending, hauling, watching the road. Always watching. On the 4th morning, Anna found the buried box. She'd been digging near the barn, trying to plant what little seed they had left, when her spade struck something hard. Wood. She knelt, brushed dirt aside, and lifted the lid. Inside, a Colt Navy revolver, wrapped in oilcloth, and a brass marshal's badge, dulled by time. She stared at it, stunned. Thomas emerged from the house, rifle over one shoulder, a sack of oats in hand. He saw the box and froze. "You were Law," she said. He didn't answer right away. Set the sack down slow. "Was. Long time ago. You didn't tell me." "Didn't matter. Not to the land. Not to you." Anna stood. "It matters now." Thomas sighed, rubbing a hand over his jaw. "Used to wear that badge in Kansas. Before the war took my leg near off and sent me limping back here. Before I married. Before she died." He looked out over the fence line. "I turned my back on that life. Thought if I worked hard enough, the past wouldn't follow. But out here, nothing stays buried." Anna nodded once, then placed the badge gently on the porch rail. "Then maybe it's time to dig it back up." That night, 3 riders appeared. They didn't bother sneaking. They came down the hill with guns drawn, torches lit, faces grim. Pike car rode in front, mouth curled in a sneer, shoulder wrapped tight from an old wound. Thomas stood in the doorway, rifle in hand. Anna beside him, knife tucked at her belt. "Well," Pike called, reining in. "You put down 2 of my boys, lit up my camp, and stole what I paid for." "She wasn't yours to buy," Thomas answered. Pike laughed. "You think marrying her makes it clean? You ain't a man. You're a ghost." Thomas stepped forward into the torchlight, the badge gleaming on his chest. "You remember this?" he asked. Pike's laughter faded. "I was there in Wichita," Thomas continued. "Watched you hang 2 brothers for half a gold ring, then cut them down and rode before the law caught up. That badge don't mean nothing out here." "It means you're already dead," Anna said. Before Pike could speak, her hand moved. Fast. A throwing knife she'd kept hidden sang through the air, hitting the rider to Pike's left in the throat. He crumpled without a sound. The gunfight that followed was short. Thomas dropped to one knee, fired twice. The second rider fell off his horse, hitting the dirt with a broken spine. Pike fired wild, missed, screamed, turned to flee. But Anna was already moving. She caught him before he cleared the trees, tackled him from the side. They hit the ground hard. He rolled, tried to draw. She slammed his hand into a rock, once, twice, until he dropped the gun. "I was never yours," she hissed, "and I don't run anymore." Pike spat blood. "You think you're better than me? You're nothing." "No," she said, pressing the knife against his throat. "I'm free." But she didn't kill him. Instead, she dragged him back to the house and threw him at Thomas's feet. "You still Law," she said. "Do what lawmen do." Thomas looked down at Pike, the past pulsing like a wound reopened. Then he turned, took a length of rope, and bound Pike's hands. Next morning, he rode into town with Pike tied behind his horse. The sheriff, gray-bearded and cautious, stared when he saw the badge. "Thought you were dead," he muttered. "Just resting." Thomas said. They jailed Pike without question. Word spread like fire. The widow's girl who fought like a mountain cat. The old man who'd once cleaned up a Kansas town and came out of retirement for one last reckoning. By week's end, folks brought food to the gate. Tools, seed, a new mule, a hammer made of iron and care. Anna planted every gift with quiet hands. One night, Thomas sat on the porch, watching stars shimmer above the hills. Anna joined him, brushing dust from her skirt. "You think it's over?" she asked. He considered it. Trouble never ends. But legend keeps it honest. She nodded. "Then I guess we're part of it now." Thomas smiled. "No, you are." And somewhere out in the desert wind, a story was born. Of the girl who wasn't broken, the lawman who rose from ashes, and the land that bore witness to justice hard-earned and legends well-made.